A few days ago, I was on a podcast out of Nigeria. That was awesome. And the gentleman asked me, what's the difference from being tired and being burnt out? And I said, oh, I'm going to steal that. That's a good one. So I talked about how tired is a physical exhaustion. You've been through quite a bit, and sometimes you're just tired at the end of the day. You're tired at the end of the week. But being burnt out is due to an actual situation. And I used to think burnout was just something from a manager's just throwing work at you and you just can't breathe. But I learned something different. I learned that burnt out is also caused by us. And for myself, I learned that Carla caused her burnt out. I went through a situation where the work was, we had a huge project and things just weren't going right. So I decided to work 12 hours, 13 hours. No one asked me to do this, but I decided to do it myself. And I became burnt out. So much so that when I took off time from work, and a manager said to one of the leaders in the organization, oh, Carla's not here because she is burnt out. And that's the first time I was identified as an employee who was burnt out. But as I look back at it, I found that I was the cause. They never said, Carla, you work 12 hours a day. You work 13, 14. Make sure you come in on the weekends. I caused the burnout in my own life. So today we have Coach G, and she's going to talk about burnout. So let me give you some information about Coach G. And by the way, folks, welcome to Lead Like You Mean It, people. Coach G, also known as Georgette, that's what I call her, Georgette Green Hotnet. She is a seasoned math educator, leader, and the voice behind the Miserable Teacher Forum and Miserable Teacher channel on YouTube. After decades in education, she reached a point where she knew life had to be more about than just surviving the demands of work. We all know about that. Now she's on a mission to encourage and empower mid-career and veteran teachers to hold on to their faith, reclaim what matters most, and find renewed meaning and connection in life and work. Coach G, welcome to Lead Like You Mean It, people.
Thank you. Good to be with you all today. Thanks for having me, Carla. This is an honor.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. So, tell us a little bit about yourself beyond what I just shared with our audience.
I am, I've always wanted to be a teacher. From a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I matriculated through school. I had some challenges along the way in terms of going directly into my teaching career. And I say challenges just because I got a little distracted. But if you have a call on your life, if you have a mission, you have a purpose that you intended to have and to walk in, it's going to all come back. So I had worked in higher education in New England for about 7 years. And an opportunity came to move to the DMV. And I said, with this change, I'm going to go be a teacher. And so I had to go do some additional graduate work. And I wound up starting as a substitute teacher. I was like, let me test this out a little bit. And then I got a gig and I was so excited. And that started my career in Charles County Public Schools that I had for over 23 years. It was a wonderful career. I have no regrets, but I do know about burnout.
Talk to us a little bit about the miserable, let me make sure that I get this correctly, the Miserable Teacher Forum and the Miserable Teacher channel. First of all, talk to us about the Miserable Teacher and then the forum.
In 2017, God put on my heart Confessions of a Miserable Teacher. It never left. Like I would try to shake it, I would try to dodge it. And over time, I came to realize in my work, while I was still in K-12, I always found myself helping teachers, inspiring them, encouraging them, supporting them, being a part of whether it be a small scale solution or a large scale solution, I'd be there. And a lot of my early work was working with new teachers. I was a mentor teacher in the building. But as time went on, I realized that the mid to late career teacher is the one really holding it down in the school. They're the ones being the coaches, being the supporters, helping to orient people, helping to teach people strategies they could never learn in teacher ed. And so when I reflected, I kept hearing that Confessions of a Miserable Teacher. I was like, that's who's miserable. And almost like a silent misery, because everybody expects them to be on point. Everybody expects them to be the host and the guide. So when I stepped out and made the decision to start my own coaching business, I really started with the Facebook group. I actually really started in the pandemic when I had a podcast with a colleague called Real Talk, Real Time Educators Forum. Is when I knew the miserable teacher was the mid to late career teacher. You have the person that is been in their career a long time. Like this is what they know, this is what they do. And it's when you don't have to work 2 months in the summer. And some great perks when you can, have your children maybe at the same school. But those perks are not as valuable if you're miserable. And so being that I became, like I said, I was in the school system 23 years. I got to the place where you have to decide, you have to pause and say, but really, what matters most? And in the pandemic, the phrase that I always said to the audience is, don't leave it all in the schoolhouse, because there's so much life ahead of us. And if we don't pause, realign our priorities, consider our time, our talents, and our tolerance, and the ways in which we're going to be in control of that, we're going to have our own problems on our hands.
Wow. So with the miserable teacher, and I heard you say at the is it mid career? Am I getting that
It's a
right? The
late
mid career
career.
towards the end.
Mhm.
Okay, they're miserable, but define that miserable life. What are they thinking? How are they feeling?
When I use the phrase miserable, I'm not saying every day. I'm not saying they all waking up like that. But there's a point in their career, there's a point in their year, there's a point in their day when they are mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. And it's the kind of profession that it's a service profession. You're not just sharing information, you're not just teaching, you are asked to be the counselor, the mental health therapist, the performance organizer, the statistician, the sometimes you're doing people's hair, you're bringing them food, you're bringing them school supplies. And you are making decisions, so many decisions in one 90-minute period, more than many other professions. So almost like an emergency room doctor. You don't know who's coming in the door. In school, you know who your students will be in your class, right? But you don't know what they're bringing with them. You don't know when they come in the door. I remember the days, one year, the thing I learned, one year I learned a lot. My post was at the front door of the school. And so, of course, started the year, I don't know the kids, but I'm starting to recognize these faces. Those kids would come off the bus, and I could tell from the minute they walked in the building if their morning was their normal or if something happened. It might have been it happened on the bus, could have been at the bus, it could have been they left their backpack. That's you got 30 of those, 32 of those coming in your class. And you are expecting all the parents, all the administrators, everyone's expecting that you are on par, that you are in position that you have any of these situations happen in your life. You just got to bring it. And
Wow.
really, while people, society knows that your job is challenging, because when Teacher Appreciation Day comes, the PTA sure knows how to bring it on. They want to give you the little treats, and they want to give you the little lifesaver. You are always there to save our children. You are flexible with the rubber band, right? They can do all that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to live it is completely different. So the person, what does it look like? It looks like being malleable. It looks like giving
Mhm.
of yourself. It looks like um, having a pulse, being aware. What I found in the work I'm doing with teachers is because I found it for myself, is that I had to decide what my vision was going to be for my life as an educator. And I had to put some things in alignment. And what I did, it might seem drastic, I actually left. I left, I don't remember the year, but I left because I felt myself at that I have had it stage. I loved my work. I loved the work I did. I loved the people I worked with. But I said, I've got to go. And how I saw it was because my youngest son was having challenges in school, and I was not able to both balance the commitment, the job responsibilities, the tasks, all of the things, the work I'm bringing home. And then my son comes home, he's like, I need help. Now I'm trying to figure this out. I got these test papers I still got to grade, or do I help my kid? So thankfully, I was in a position where I could, and I left. And then I started working for the school system part time. So, what it looks like is you're constantly making decisions, and those decisions sometimes put you against the wall. And sometimes those are just small decisions like, yes, today I'm going to leave at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock comes, your desk is not looking any better. You're staying later.
Yeah. You know, last during our last episode, I brought up about my algebra teacher. I was in Algebra 101, and I talked about how she asked me to answer or solve a problem on the board. I told her I couldn't see it. And she was like, "What do you mean, Carla?" I said, I can't see what's on there. There's no problem. Basically, no problem. But what it was, I didn't know I needed glasses.
Mm.
And she took her glasses off and she put them on my face. And I said, "Oh, okay."
You see what I'm saying,
But that
Carla?
was a teacher. That was a teacher. She said, "Carla, tell your mother that you need glasses." And my mother took me to the eye doctor or whomever.
Yeah.
And I had glasses that evening. And then that next day, I walked into the ninth grade and I had glasses on. But it's something that you say that because the teacher is more than
Hey,
just I'm going to teach you based on our curriculum. She's
more than.
far more. And then the other thing I know I remember as you were speaking, I remember being in high school and as you we had I think we had like 7 periods, 7 or 8 periods. It was like crazy back then. But anyway, I remember walking past my algebra teacher. Her name was Miss Moskowitz. And all I wanted to do is, and we did this, hi, Miss Moskowitz. And she would say, hi, Carla. Hi. You just wanted that acknowledgement from your teacher, and you just walked on past. And then, and she did her thing. She was young in her 20s, but she watched us as we walked past. And it was just weird. Like, okay, she's really, okay, what's going on with her?
Really
It's,
working.
it's something, what you're saying, that teachers go far beyond. They're like a parent.
Have a choice. You do not
Yeah,
have a choice. There are
yeah.
times when the administration might even come and say, this family just had a fire last night. So
Wow.
they're going to be out for a few days. See how you can make some, assistance. I have worked with some incredible educators. I remember being on the seventh grade team at one of my schools. We have done things like we're going to pool our money and we're going to put a card together. We're going to give it to this family because five of us taught that child and their family's going through a situation and we want to support them. Or I'm going to stay after school with the kid because they have stuff to do. Or I have stopped students from going to class because I'm helping them organize their stuff. Because when they walk past me, they got papers coming out of everywhere. And I'm like, every time I ask him for his homework, he don't have it. And then I'm looking at him, I'm like, I see why. I
Mhm.
remember going with that boy to his locker, and when the door opened, the thing started falling out of the locker, Carla.
Oh,
And I sat there and I said, okay, we're going to bring all that to my room. And we sorted all the papers and then we organized. And then I gave him binders. That wasn't in my schedule,
yeah, yeah.
But people, there's a part of me that even when I was in the classroom, I gave society a break. I said, oh, I get that they don't understand what we deal with and what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I regret giving the society a break. Today, I don't give them a break. Today, I say, if we as a culture and a country do not get a handle on the ways in which we want this school, parent, family pipeline to work, our society will suffer. We're seeing them suffer partially now. Many of the mid to late career teachers are number one of the top concerns they are having, even in a poll that was taken in June 2025, that was funded by both the National Education Association and the National Teachers Fund, or something like that. I can't remember the other name, but the fund was based, the outcome was student behavior is a problem. I remember telling my students when they want to come and get sassy or whatever, and I would just be like, I got my own kids at home. I don't come here for this. I come here to teach you math. So you have a choice because I have my own methods of how I handle this kind of behavior. Or you can
Mm-hmm.
sit down and we get to doing what I've been brought here to do. Most times they would sit down, very few times they wouldn't. But it's all of that in the midst of me having 84 minutes to try to complete an algebra lesson for my students or a lesson for my seventh grade on-level class, or I'm in helping to support a special educator. There's 6 kids, but those 6 kids have very diverse needs, and two of
Right.
us are in place to try to support them. If one of them decides it's going to be a comedy show, anything's possible. So when you
Right.
talked about burnout, burnout comes because if we're talking about prolonged instances of interruptions, challenging behaviors, bringing work home, not really having rest. I remember I would bring home work and ask, divvy it out. Babe, here's the answer key. All you got to do is check. When I was no longer at the, I'm not even saying no longer in the classroom. When I left the school system in 2021, he finally told me he didn't like that. That's the kind of support he was giving me in that journey. But he was like, you was a different person. You was more, gee, like you had a little attitude more often than that. It made me cry, not in his presence, but I was like, wow, like my own family suffered because of
Wow.
my career. This is unacceptable. So that's my mission. My mission is to help the mid and late career teachers, not to help them, to inspire and encourage them
Mm-hmm.
to pause, assess, and realign what matters most. And there are the 3 areas that I mention often: time, talents, and tolerance. When those
Wow.
3 are out of whack, that's when you see the burnout. I see you
That's
looking up in the sky. You thinking about that, right? Ain't you? Ain't you? Ain't you?
I'm thinking deep about it, Georgette. I'm
Yes.
thinking deep because that tolerance point of view. What are you able to tolerate at that level? Yeah, it's not so much as it's the time. I mean, that's evident. That's what with
It's
us all. But
obvious.
that tolerance, and then when you mentioned about bringing it home, your husband helping you, and so forth, it's not just okay. So the bell just rang, and let's just say school day is over at 3 o'clock.
Mm-mm. You want to know why?
Yeah, it
Because the
continues.
things that happen in the midst of the day. One of the experiences I remember, I'm not going to name the school, but I remember it. My planning period, so we had a 4 block schedule. So we had 4 84-minute periods,
Mm,
and you would teach 3 and have a planning one of those. So I taught 3 periods. I had a period of time for lunch in between there, and then my planning was at the end of the day. That to me was like working the graveyard shift because by the time the end of the day came, I'm exhausted.
yeah.
So on this particular day, I'm preparing for planning. I hear a little ruckus in the room next door, and I go and I look, and it seems that the teacher next door went to pull down the projector screen, and it fell on her head.
Oh my gosh.
And so, of course, she's like, oh my God, she leaves. They come tend to her, they take her away, and I go in the room because I'm like, you can't leave the kids alone.
Yeah.
No one came back. Not one soul came back. So I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. I stayed my entire 84 minutes because I even called to the office. They were like, Brianna, you in there? Oh my God. We're gonna try to get somebody there. I think there was only 20 minutes left. I was like, forget it. Because ain't nobody gonna come. Okay.
Hmm.
But dismissals coming. Like the people who might have been able to, they're off doing. Then at the end of the day, I have bus duty. So I should have been going down outside to wherever my bus location was. I said on this day, no, indeed. I don't have nothing left. Like literally, I wasn't crawling to my room, but I felt like that. By the time I got to my chair and I just sat in my chair, the next morning, I had a note in my box that I was not at bus duty. Carla? Oh, Carla. Did you say it? Hello.
That's oh,
Carla.
Bridget.
There's something wrong with that, ain't it?
Majorly wrong.
That's that's just one example of, and I took that little note to the principal's office and I wound my neck up and I was like, I'm sorry. Do you know why I didn't go to the bus? I didn't go to bus too. That's the thing that a lot of teachers don't do. They'll say, go to their room, they'll slam stuff, be irritated. No, I can't. I got to the place early on because I knew I was good at my work. I love my work. I love my people, right? So if I came to you with something, I feel confident that I can, but there's a lot of teachers that don't feel that. They don't feel that also because the environment does not welcome that. There's just like corporate, just like military, just like government, any organization. There's a culture. Mary C. Murphy wrote the book Culture of Growth. And it talks about how there's these in these industries or these cultures that are based on who's best or who could do it quickest or who could. That's not a culture of growth. A culture of growth is the kind like when I went to my principal and said, I'm sorry. I did not go to bus duty. And since I'm always at bus duty, someone should have been in my room to say, hey, is green hiding it all right? Instead of putting this little note in my box. Because I'm
Yeah.
always on my task. But what was the response to someone was like, oh, green hiding it. I had no idea. Thank you so much. The other response might have been, it doesn't matter. You should have been at bus. You get what I'm saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
Carla?
Yeah.
So that's why I think some educators, they're not going to say anything because they've lived enough of that, what they call cultures of genius, where we get caught up in smarts and brilliance instead of you want everybody to win. You want everybody to feel a part. You want everyone to feel empowered and important, which is why for me, when I decided after I took my break, I worked for part-time. That's when I was a mentor teacher. I decided the
What's a
best
mentor teacher?
mentor
Like,
teacher is when you are supporting other teachers. And usually those were the
okay.
new early career teachers.
Got it.
The decisions that I made centered around love.
Mm.
And that's what I do in my consultancy. It's it's hard to love when you are getting disobedience from children who are more, I mean, they could be your own child. It's difficult to find love when parents are emailing you, telling you what you should do and how you aren't and how you won't. And so I found that that is the barometer that I used when I came back to decide how I was going to move. Because I can't control other people, but I
Yeah.
can control how I'm going to move.
So As far as, because I see it a little differently with the teacher really is the leader in the room,
Yeah,
bottom line.
me too. Yep.
Then the teacher also has layers. So not just the teacher, I'm just gonna like I mentioned earlier, I had algebra 101. So not just I'm gonna prepare and I'm gonna teach you algebra 101, then I'm gonna grade your quizzes, tests, whatever after school. You have layers. So you have to not only deal with the child, but you have to deal with the child's life. You have to deal with the parents at times. And then you mentioned that culture. You have to deal with whether it's another teacher or whomever, and then the principal, a superintendent, how they bring the culture. So it kind of goes like this with a teacher, and it never ends. You may get some peace and quiet in the summertime, but it revs back up. So
It's
I
quiet
never
in the
looked at
summer.
it.
Oh, it's not.
Is
But
it okay? So tell me.
they might tell you you get to teach the same class, and then sometimes they say you got to change. So then what are you doing? Your brain is now trying to get your mind on maybe I'm
Oh,
teaching sixth grade math, and last year I taught seventh grade math, or now I'm teaching algebra two, or maybe
you have to adjust.
it's never the
Okay.
rest people think that happens in the
I-
summer.
Okay, that makes sense. And then also because of the lack of pay for teachers, I've heard of some teachers they would go and get a job for that certain amount of time just to make ends meet because not only they're taking care of themselves, but they're supporting financially supporting, as you mentioned, some of the students as well.
I would add that if you're a new teacher coming out of school, you might be bringing college debt. You might
Yeah.
be having debts
Mm,
just from trying to start a new life in a new city. Some
yeah.
places don't pay as well as others. Some districts have where it's the pay is based on success with score test scores, standardized
Uh-huh.
testing, and so those things bring about stress. Even
Okay.
bringing up the summer, I would coach teachers to stop doing that. Your well-being is way more important than that
Mm,
$3,000 you're gonna get for those 2 months. Like you have,
mm,
but our culture in education is they need people in the summer. They need them for these summer programs that they're trying to offer to help students. Honestly, the intention is good, but the culture is to fall into those traps. I used to teach summer school for years, and this one summer, I don't remember why I didn't. I did it, and when I paused,
mm.
but I had done it so often, it just became what I did. What I then started doing was enriching my own children, having experiences with my own family, resting. How about doing those chores that I didn't get a chance to do because I was grading papers in the evening? How about
Yeah.
going on a trip? How about all those doctor's appointments that I might not have been going to? So,
Self-care,
people
yes.
just don't know. But that's why I'm here for the mid to late career teacher, just reminding. It's more about reminding. It's not that you don't know when you're a teacher, it's just
Uh-huh.
reminding you you're important and it's time for you to
Mhm.
prioritize your time, your talents. You are talented, you are skilled, you are capable. And I'm saying I'm coaching them on talent for them to go change their careers or leave education. I'm saying maybe you can monetize outside of work some of your wonderful lesson plans you're creating, or some of the wonderful wall hangings that you create. Maybe make some money on that instead of working in the summer. Like I'm
Mm,
really here to help that mid to late career teacher to think differently about their walk that they're having. And for those who are on the tip of retirement and they are like, oh my God, I'm clinging for dear life to get there. I'm there to just remind them that you can do it. But if we come up with a plan that works for you, some reframing of how you think and how you see yourself, and the value of your time, all of it will help in their
mm.
transitions with a successful retirement.
That's beautiful. So, Georgia, we're out of time. Can you believe it?
This was too fast. Too fast, Carla.
So, I appreciate you coming on. So, I see a little differently because I'm not a teacher. By the way, I thought, how in the world would they stand before all these kids and teach every day? That takes a special
Loved it.
person.
I
It takes a
loved it.
special person.
I love them.
It
And
does.
seventh grade, they're so nutty. It's incredible. They are just, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I also, I'll say this really quickly. When you mentioned about the teacher can see you, they really can. We had, I remember, I can't remember what grade I was in high school, maybe 10th grade, something like that. And there was a kid who kept falling asleep. And I think it was an English class. No, it was science class. And I remember the teacher said, every time you come to my class, you fall asleep.
Hmm?
And the rest of us kids are like, he does? But she noticed it and he said, I have to get up and milk the cows in the morning at 5:30. Now, me, okay, I'm gonna say it, spoiled kid. I'm like,
Right.
but he was so serious. And she
Hmm.
said, okay. And she worked something out with him. But she
But I'm
saw
saying,
him, and the rest of us are in our own little 10th grade world. So
yeah.
teachers are very, very I don't even know what the word is. Just having that view of I'm just not here as an instructor. I'm here to support the child overall.
Even
And
to add that,
that's a leadership.
there's also the student who comes to you brilliant, who their parents, I've met and worked with so many families. The kids are literally brilliant. They are a seventh grader, but they have a mind of a 10th grader. And so they're in my class. I have to come up with a plan, which would be a personalized instruction plan for that one student
Hmm,
and
hmm.
touch base, work with the gifted educators. So we're not just talking about struggling students, the entire gamut of
Yeah,
students.
yeah.
It's on us.
Wow. That's beautiful. Hey, I think this is my first time. I did not ask any of Connie's questions. Connie's our producer. I can't believe it.
Maybe I talk too long.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. So thank you, Georgette, for sharing with us about teachers and how just the acknowledgement of their life, their care, how they see the total student, and then also what they have to go through in their lives. Because we normally don't hear, we hear about it more so lately, but before there was a silence around teachers. But now we hear a little bit more about, their personal struggles, what they go through, their lack of pay, and then the culture within whether it's a county or whether it's a school. But thank you for sharing that the teachers are leaders. They're one of the first leaders
Absolutely.
that we encounter in our lives.
Yes, I want to just
Yeah.
say, as a fan of teachers, a supporter, you are the ultimate influencers. I don't care about what you're seeing on Instagram and all that outside of the family and maybe their clergy. You are next in line to being an ultimate influencer. And so don't lose yourself. Be encouraged and be inspired. And check us out on the Miserable Teacher forum on Facebook and on the Miserable Teacher on YouTube. And you could always reach me on my website, which is coachglive.com.
All right. And then Connie will have your information in the comments as well.
Wonderful.
So everybody can reach out. All right,
Thanks for giving
folks.
us space.
Thank you, Coach G, as I call her, Georgette. Thank you, Coach G. Thank you,
Thank
Connie, our
you.
producers. And we'll see you next time on Lead Like You Mean It, people. All right, we're out.